You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with the Daily Mirror's associate editor, Kevin Maguire, and the Daily Mail columnist, Sarah Vine. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, the government's rollback on its net zero policy is on the front of Tomorrow's Eye. The headline, Sunak's net zero election gamble. The Financial Times says the Prime Minister is facing a business backlash after his U-turn. The Guardian calls it a green bonfire and says Rishi Sunak's move to close the poll gap with Labour has been condemned by some. The Sun claims a victory for its campaign and supports the delay in hitting net zero targets. The Express describes the Prime Minister as honest over the UK's net zero commitments. The Mail says Rishi Sunak's move, which it calls bold, could transform Tory fortunes. Elsewhere, with word that one of James Bulger's murderers, John Venables, could be granted parole, the Metro proclaims, free him and he'll kill a child again. The Mirror reports that some military veterans involved in nuclear testing will take the government to court in a fight to make public records taken during atomic weapons tests. And finally, The Star says froth on beer makes pints taste twice as good. You can hear them giggling, can't you? Yes, absolutely.
I wouldn't mind a pint.
Later. Reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch us. And as you can hear, we're joined tonight by Kevin Maguire and Sarah Vine. Thanks for coming in, both of you. Good to see you in the flesh in the studio. Let's start with The Guardian. I did hear you sniggering as I was going through the papers there, Kevin. Green bonfires, PM Rouse rose back on net zero targets.
Yeah, there's nothing like a panicky press conference by a Prime Minister after a leak.
Was it panicky?
Yeah, because he was going to make the speech on Friday. They had to bring it forward because of the leak last night. He wanted some clarity, but there we are. He had to even have a virtual cabinet meeting, get all these ministers on Zoom. Anyway, and he's also, look, that long-term decisions for a brighter future, that's going to be the slogan for the Tory party conference. Now, how can he put that up?
Well, it's very nice of the Guardian to put it on the front page.
But how can he put it up in Downing Street? Isn't that a bit grubby and breaking the rules? Anyway, he's certainly performed a U-turn, but how big is the U-turn? Because the 2030 ban on the sale of new petrol and diesel cars, and they're going to be 2035. Well, until 2035, you could have bought a hybrid car. It took petrol and diesel as long as it had, like a Prius, other models are available, as long as you had some form of electrical power. And it will have an impact. But a lot of the other things he said he was U-turning on, he made up. Who was bringing in a meat tax? There wasn't a one proposal, 7 containers for you recycling.
I was confused about the thing where you had to share a car
with
a number of people in your vehicle.
Yes.
Yeah, but he was inventing.
I didn't know those things were going to happen.
Doesn't he know his party's in power? He's the Prime Minister, little Rishi.
I think that you're being a bit disingenuous. I think you are. I think that...
What, more than usual?
But, I mean, he had to do this because a lot of this stuff was leaked to the BBC, wasn't it? So, you know, he had to do the conference today. But actually, I think this is the first time we've seen Rishi really take control of the agenda, I think, because I feel like until now he's almost been sort of fixing other people's messes and just sort of chasing his tail to try and catch up. This feels like this is something that he's doing, he wants to do. He's got quite a clear vision, and he's also parking his tanks on Labour's "We're the party of the working people" lawn, as it were, because obviously these, the main criticism of all of these measures is that they're happening too fast and that people can't afford them because, you've got to replace your boiler, it's £10,000. What he's just done, he hasn't really shelved anything. He's just stretched the timeline a little bit to allow people a bit more time. By 2035, they will probably be quite a decent second-hand market in electric cars. It will be cheaper and easier for people to get hold of them.
There's one now, actually.
It's coming. So I think it's quite a wise and clever idea, and I think that he is now finally feels like we're getting a bit what Rishi wants. What's interesting about this from a sort of political geek point of view is, of course, it's the absolute opposite of what Boris Johnson wants. So again, there's that sort of internal
I think he's
Tory
misjudged the public
tension.
mood, actually.
Do you?
There was a poll for, it was Channel 4, sorry, another station, which showed 3 times as many people were less likely to vote Conservative because of this than were more likely to vote because of this. I think if he's got this idea, everyone up north who's working class is, dragging their knuckles and doesn't want the planet saved and cleaner energy, cleaner cars. I think he's wrong.
Is there any merit, though, in the argument that British people are suffering more in terms of green aspirations, and therefore slowing it down gives them a chance to catch up, and it doesn't hit people's pockets so hard so soon?
How are we suffering now?
The cost of living is,
but where we've suffered...
To replace the boiler is £10,000, a lot of money.
But you don't have to replace it unless your boiler's knackered, and you could have had a new gas one for years to come, and then it would work for another 10 or 20 years. This idea, he's almost created the impression that you'd get to, say, 2030, and your car, if it was petrol or diesel, was going to be impounded and squeezed in a compressor into a little metal block. Look, people are being hurt because since 2015 there's been an effective ban on onshore wind turbines. I think there's only been 20 have been getting planning approval when that is cheap electricity. It's the cheapest electricity. So going green and growth, as Boris Johnson actually go hand in hand. And it's better in the long run. It's rather like people get electric
that Boris
cars.
Johnson was right, Kevin?
Well, look, stop clock is right twice a day. I think on this, he agreed with wiser people. And look, in electric cars, people who get them, all of a sudden, you're not spending a fortune filling it up with diesel or petrol.
Yes, but your journeys are staggered because you've got to recharge and you can't go very far. But anyway, on that point...
If you've got a range of 250 miles...
It depends on the electric car
people drive 250
It depends on the electric car you get.
Mining lithium, which is what you need for the batteries, is very bad for the environment.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt.
Very bad.
Well, the other point of an electric car...
We don't do it. We make other people do it for us.
An electric car, you take out the internal combustion engine, so you're not burning a fossil fuel, but most of the electricity generated in the UK is coming from fossil fuels, gas and petrol. So you're basically just shifting the emissions to a big power station.
Let's take a look at the eye, and they've very helpfully coloured Rishi Sunak
in
in
green.
green.
Like Shrek,
so we know what we're talking
I think he's a bit
about.
more of a donkey, isn't he?
They made him look...
But what they're saying is that this is sparking Tory fury, that he's going against backbenchers and possibly even some ministers by this. So he, as to what you were saying earlier, that he's really putting his tanks on the lawn and standing for what he wants to bring in.
Yeah, the Conservative Party's split on it. Unquestionably,
he needs to. I think he's doing what he should do, which is to show leadership. If you're the Prime Minister and you're the leader of a party, at the end of the day, people need to get in line. Otherwise, you can't possibly. You can't run a party if you've got them. And the problem with the Tories is they're always split, and they're always infighting, and they're always destroying their own. And they're always destroying their own success. And I think that he needs to now show resolve and strength and determination, and this is his decision, and he should just stick to it, stick to his knitting.
Sort of speed into that brick wall.
Yeah, well,
being described as an election gamble, but he was very certain to say that this is not about politics.
Well, that was a hoot. You saw his nose grow by about 2 feet when he said this is not about politics, because of course it is. Like the date he is interested in is not 2030, 2035 or 2050, it's 2024. It's next year when he has to have a general election, and he is gambling by shoring up some of his core support with this, that he will do better in the polls. That's what it's about. He'll let the planet burn if he gets him another spell in number 10.
The planet won't burn if we don't reach net zero, because we produce just under 1% of the world's global emissions.
Yeah, because we outsourced so much of ours to China.
But the net zero deadline hasn't changed.
No,
but he can't say how he'll get there now, because he was asked by a reporter at the press conference, if you're not going to get rid of these emissions because you're changing your dates on boilers and on cars, how are you going to do it? And he didn't have an answer. Because, of course, he hasn't got... I mean, he's just done this on the back of an envelope, hasn't he? That's it.
I think the probably spent a little bit more time on it than that, Kevin.
I don't think you've got any evidence for that, have you? Come on.
Let's take a look at some of the other papers. The Telegraph is just coming in, so you might not have that there, but they're talking about, as was the mainstay of that speech, trying to save the public from the pain in their pockets.
You could actually... Sunak denies public net zero gain. You could approach it completely differently here, and this is where the split is. But most of the papers who are backing him on this were also the ones who backed Liz Truss and that budget. So, you know.
And your paper, Sarah, suggesting that this could transform Conservative fortunes.
Yes, I mean, the Sun, which is somewhere in the pile, is claiming that it's their campaign. Sun campaign victory, it says very firmly. But the Mail has been very sceptical of all of these measures, and so I think we feel that this is quite a good solution.
But pitching it as a battle, PM takes on eco-zealots in bold move.
Yes. Well, Zach Goldsmith is very cross.
Oh, yes.
And he's threatening to vote Labour, which I'm sure will make a big difference.
He can't, because he's a peer. You don't get a vote in a general election as a peer. You can vote in council elections, I think.
But, you know, that's the problem with... I mean, the word pragmatic has been used a lot. And you know, the thing is about politics is you have to be pragmatic because you can't please all of the people all the time. You just have to do what you think is right. And if he is doing what he thinks is right, then... either people will either like it or they won't, and that's totally their prerogative.
He shredded all the government reports that said actually this will be a gain. He has, because he's denied the evidence. Now the Sun have got him, and they claim a victory, which is fair enough. They got him filling up the car. That car, I think, is the one in Sainsbury's he had to borrow from a member of staff, so it was smaller than his own, and then he couldn't pay for the fuel because he didn't know how you could tap a card on a reader. I mean, I do think
that's pictured in the Sun.
He's pretty clueless on all this. He's never really believed in the environment, despite the fact he's got a rather nice bit of North Yorkshire as his constituency.
How's he going to deal with the business backlash? The FT is looking at that point, and we've heard tonight from Ford not happy.
Ford apparently are not happy, but I suspect that, I mean, it's a 5-year delay. I mean, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's quite a short period of time.
Yeah, but they plan sort of 10 years in advance, don't they?
Because you've got to re-equip all your lines. I think there are some Tories, and I wonder if he is one of these, because he was an investment banker, he was a casino capitalist, he would spin the wheel and try and make lots of money, but he's not in industry.
No.
And industry will be hit because car companies do, as you say, have to plan far in advance. And as the boss of Ford said, he wanted the government to have ambition, commitment and consistency. A relaxation of 2030 would undermine all three. The British car industry is incredibly important. It's under pressure because of Brexit. And I think changing like this so quickly, and it's a dilemma now for Starmer, because if he says, right, well, if we win this time next year, we'll revert to 2030, then...
Which is what they are saying.
Yeah, then car companies are going to be in a problem, because what do they do in the meantime? Because they're going to make investment decisions.
But I suppose it's the question...
billions of pounds, including public money.
I suppose the question in his head would be, do I help people or do I help companies? Do I help big manufacturers or do I help voters who are struggling with their money? So he's made that decision as opposed to the other decision.
But you know what would help people struggling with their money is certainly raising pensions by the triple lock. It will also be by increasing benefits in April by at least inflation. Because how many people are going to be
we're getting into another argument
but he says I'm going to help you here.
And we have to go to the break.
As you say, it's not until 2030 anyway, and it's about buying a car.
Ignoring me.
No, I'm just giving
Kevin
context.
and Sarah, thank you very much for the minute. We are going to the break coming up. Our press preview colleague Susie Boniface has an exclusive on nuclear test veterans' fight to get their missing medical records back. We'll discuss that in just a moment. Do stay with us. You are still watching the press preview. Still with me, Kevin Maguire and Sarah Vine. Let's take a quick look at this story on the front of the Mirror. And it's exclusive by Susie Boniface. Newt's test veterans are launching a last-ditch court battle to end a 70-year MOD cover-up. Kevin, take us into the story.
Yeah, my colleague Susie's very tenacious on this. Some would say obsessed, but it is the fact that test veterans, nuclear test veterans, 50s and 60s, used as guinea pigs for Explosion Britain's programme. They and their Australian counterparts, and also what were called in official papers natives, Aboriginal peoples, are going to take legal action to get access to medical records. We were told there weren't any blood test records, but some have emerged from the atomic weapons establishment. So they're now having to crowdfund to get the money to take the MOD to court. They shouldn't have to do this. You shouldn't be fighting this battle. But they've been denied compensation because they were told there was no evidence linking what happened to them, to face nuclear explosions and terrible illnesses, and including in kids and grandkids down the line.
And Sarah, had it not been for the tenacity of Susie Boniface, that this story might not be seeing the light of day. She has really been.
She has really been at it, and I think it's a really important story. I think how old are these veterans now? They're quite old, aren't they?
Because it was the 50s and 60s. I think it was 22,000 of them at the time. Their ranks are thinned every year, and it's appalling. They haven't had the truth. And certainly not getting justice.
They deserve it.
Let's move to the, which paper is it in? The Metro and the Royals' visit to France. Their three-day state visit, which started today. Lovely photo of all four there. And I'm not sure if they're probably still dining, or they're at the Palace of Versailles.
I have to say, the menu looked quite dyspeptic. I hope King Charles has got his Rennies. It was quite a lot of lobster.
I don't know what was in the menu. Oh.
It was
blue
lobster and
blue
crab,
lobster?
blue lobster and crab, and then the second course was chicken marinated in champagne, obviously.
Isn't he a greedy, messy eater?
He's quite a fussy eater. Yeah, he's quite a fussy eater.
Call it fussy, I'll call it greedy.
But yes, it's a proper state banquet, and then there's a lot of cheese, and then
there's a lot of cheese.
There's a pudding that apparently Lady Macron... Lady Macron? Is she Lady Macron? Have I just made that up?
I think you've made that up.
I think that... She looks like Mrs Macron had requested. I like the way they've coordinated their outfits there.
Yes, they do.
Crowds were a bit thin, weren't they?
What would you
Midweek,
expect?
it's the first day.
Yeah, they haven't got the pulling power of his mum.
No.
Queen Elizabeth.
Well, it is a different time. And Macron did famously say at the passing of Queen Elizabeth II that there is only one queen. She was the queen, so it's a different
It was snubbed to Camilla, that wasn't it?
We've got a good picture on the front of the Daily Mail of her looking quite sort of Beyoncé, with her hair flying off.
In the wind, we have
It's very windy. It was very windy at the reception, and all of the guests arrived and were very wind blown.
Sarah and Kevin, thank you so much.